This video is sponsored by 𝘾𝙃𝘼𝙉𝙆, the gap insurance experts. Visit their website for an instant online quotation and use the code GYM10 to get £10 off your purchase. Hello folks and welcome to the car news for March 2023. Give this one a thumbs up and we'll crack straight on with the first story, which is this one. Car thefts up 29%. I thought car theft was something of the past, to be fair. I know in last month's news we saw people stealing car parts on a fairly grand scale, but it seems like they've gone back to nicking cars. I guess it's a sign of the financial times in which we're living, but perhaps work a bit harder, get another job. Don't nick cars, folks. The AA is saying that you can help by buying like a steering wheel lock and that kind of stuff, but personally I think it's a load of nonsense because you can get those things off in about 4 seconds. And I don't know, you've just got to hope you're not one of the unlucky ones, and if you are one of the unlucky ones, hope that your insurance company does their job properly and gives you a decent settlement. The Kia EV9 has arrived finally. Obviously, we've seen quite a lot of kind of preview shots of this and little glimpses here and there, but here it is finally in the flesh. And there you go. What do you think of the styling? I personally love it. I think it looks like a cross between a Lego car and a Tonka toy. It is huge, yes, but I think it looks cool. Personally, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Now, you can get this as a 7-seater or a 6-seater, which is quite interesting. Here it is in that 6-seat configuration, but you can also flip those middle seats around and have them facing the rearmost passengers, which is really quite cool. You can also turn that seat halfway. And there you go. So if you're using the car to go camping, for example, and don't forget, you'll probably be able to draw 3.5 kilowatts off this and charge everything on your campsite. You could use that as a little bit of an extra seat or a bit of a lounge, couldn't you? I think it's a brilliant bit of design. The thing that I don't think is so brilliant is the price. There's no official word on this yet, but they're guessing it's going to be about 80 grand, which will be the most expensive Kia ever. Sounds like it's going to have probably a 100 kilowatt battery pack, and that should be good for over 330 miles of range. But that's a hell of a lot of money, is it not? To give you a better idea of the size of the car, it's about the same size as a Range Rover. There's going to be a new range-topping electric SUV from Alfa Romeo. They say it's going to rival BMW iX. It's not actually going to be around until about 2027, so I'm not too invested in this story. But for me, Alfas have always been cars that really appeal massively because they look fantastic, they drive fantastically well, but the thing that lets them down has always been the fact that they break down every 10 minutes. I know that's a generalism, but, you know, they've got some form. Now, moving something like Alfas over to an EV platform might just be the thing that actually makes them take off, because the EV platform should be pretty reliable, shouldn't it? No moving parts. If there are issues, hopefully they can be resolved with a laptop. And this might just be a new lease of life for brands like Alfa that people have always avoided purely because of reliability and cost of repairs. Loads of VW and Audi news coming up now. New 7-seat Volkswagen ID Buzz spotted testing. I don't know why it didn't come out as a 7-seat in the first place. It seemed like madness. It's going to be a longer wheelbase with 7 seats in it. And hopefully that longer wheelbase might mean they put a bigger battery pack in, because at the moment it's something like fairly like 250 miles of range, 258 miles of range, I think. If they could get that up to about 300 miles of range, that then becomes a very sort of competent sort of European tour kind of car that you could put the wife and the kids and everything else into and go on those longer journeys. So let's hope that longer wheelbase, you know, they take advantage of it and give it a bit more juice. Right, the VW ID2 All concept has been previewed. Now, this is potentially the car that's going to change everything, especially when it comes to VW, because they're saying this is going to be a sub £22,000 car that's going to have a 490 litre boot and 280 miles of range. Now, whether the final production version ends up being anything like that price or delivers anything like those numbers remains to be seen. But the really interesting thing for me is this car is a tiny bit smaller than a Polo, and it's got 490 litres of boot space. And they get that basically because although it's a smaller car, they can put it on a longer wheelbase because they don't have to fit an engine and everything in. So they push the wheels further into the corners, you get more interior space and a nice big boot. This could be the thing that makes VW a bit more of an everyman brand again. Although, you know, 22 grand is still a lot of money. it's really not when you compare it to some of its rivals. I mean, that's £6 cheaper than an MG4, for example. Other news, though, is a bit confusing. They've said an ID.1's going to come out as the entry-level EV, and Autocar here are saying that this should be a similar size to the current Polo, which that ID.2 they've said is a similar size to the current Polo. So really, I wonder if that's going to replace something like the VW Up rather than the Polo, where that's going to be sort of the micro car, if you like, or something to rival a Fiat 500, something along those lines. Not so much info on that at the moment, but again, it's another more affordable car in the works from VW, which is not a bad thing. Now, if you're a bit fed up with all that EV news from VW, they're also investing in synthetic fuels, alternative fuels. Now, this could be fantastic because obviously everyone at this stage, I think, is saying that EVs are the future. All car manufacturers pretty much are now saying we're only going to develop EVs after a certain point. However, what happens to all these cars that are still on the road that are perfectly serviceable, perfectly good? Does the day come where we can no longer buy petrol or diesel, or it's so expensive to buy that, you know, it's prohibitive? And does the day come where we're sort of forced to take petrol and diesel cars off the road by the various governments? If they can develop synthetic fuels to a level where they can be mass produced affordably, and you've got no tailpipe emissions and very little emissions in the actual production of the fuel itself, this could be fantastic. And we could also even see a time where car manufacturers start to release internal combustion engine vehicles again for those that want internal combustion engine vehicles. So the fact that a huge company like VW is invested in this, and obviously Porsche have got that huge development facility down in Peru, this can only be good news. Hopefully it means choice for people going forward. Hopefully it means not every classic car eventually has to be converted to electric. Hopefully these things can still be used and enjoyed in years to come. So for me, that's a really positive thing. Audi to launch 20 models by 2025, and half of them are going to be EVs. The first one's going to be the Q6 e-tron. I think the Q4 e-tron's been pretty popular. The Q6 e-tron is going to be the next one. From 2026, any new cars Audi bring to market will be electric, and they're going to end production of internal combustion engines in 2033. So according to that, you've still got 10 years that you can go and pick yourself up a petrol Audi, but 2026, all new models will be electric only. And at some point during 2026, the new Audi A3 is supposedly going to appear. That will be all electric, and they're saying it could have a range of 400 miles and really fast charging. So really interesting times with Audi at the moment. If the new A3 looks anything like this rendering, by the way, I'd be very happy. That's a great looking car. 2024 Dacia Bigster. Prices, specs and UK release date. Well, not quite. The guess is that it's going to be about £20,000 for one of these things. It's going to rival things like the Peugeot 5008 and the 𝘲𝙗𝙉𝙉𝙉𝙍𝑒𝑡. Obviously a budget version kind of thing. As you can see, there's a little rendering here of the concept car, which has got the new Dacia branding and everything. All looks quite nice. The name Bigster, though, it feels like they've gone into a preschool and said to a kid, what shall we call a new big car? And the kid's gone, Bigster. And they've said, well done, boy. You know, Bigster, come on. But if that does come out and it's 20 grand, and it's not 20 grand for, you know, the complete poverty spec, and actually the one you want's 28 grand, I'll be quite happy to see that. I think it's quite a good looking vehicle, and, you know, Dacia are known for producing bang for your buck, aren't they? Right, this is an interesting article. Government has no plans to introduce road pricing for UK drivers. Now, when you read this story from sort of various different outlets, what you come to realise is that they've got no plans to introduce it, but they almost certainly will. They've just made no plans because there seems to be lots of finger pointing from within different governmental departments, all saying, well, you were supposed to do that. And then the next one saying, well, we couldn't do that because you didn't do this. 35 billion they're going to lose in terms of tax on fuel and vehicle excise duty when everyone moves over to EV. And the fact that they're going to start charging EVs vehicle excise duty is only going to plug 5% of the gap. There's still 95% of it, so multiple billions of pounds that they've got absolutely no plan for at the moment. So that says government has no plans to introduce road pricing. I think what it should say is government has no plans, but will introduce road pricing, because it seems like the only way they're going to do it. Otherwise, you're going to get very complicated tariffs where people have to have separate tariffs for their home charger than they do to run their TV and their kettle and all the rest of it. And I just don't see that being sort of realistically viable, and quite prone to fraud, I would imagine. So some sort of black box device in cars, or number plate recognition, something like that, is bound to be how it's done. And it'll either be a toll every time you go on certain roads, or it will be just pence per mile, I'm sure. Right, look at this one, folks. I'm in two minds about this, because the Fiat 500e is a brilliant little car to drive. It's such a laugh, but it's way too expensive. We're now going to get the Abarth 500e, which is going to do 0 to 60 2 seconds quicker than the 500e. I think 0 to 60 is going to be 7 seconds in this one. But 38.5 grand. 38.5 grand for what is a super mini, really. I've got no doubt that this thing's going to be absolutely epic to drive. I bet it's going to be the biggest sort of grin-making vehicle you could ever drive. But 38.5 grand, come off it. I mean, you're only a few grand off a Tesla Model 3, aren't you? Which offers quite a bit more, in fairness. And some of the other cars you can get for 38.5 grand. Ooh. Right, good news for Genesis. They're seeking new retail partners as they want to open 15 UK showrooms. Last year, Genesis only sold 127 new vehicles. This year, in January alone, they sold 121. So they were 6 shy of last year's total just in January of this year. And if you haven't driven a Genesis and you're into your big sort of premium German cars, or your Lexus cars, anything like that, you simply must go and check one out, because they are phenomenal vehicles. They almost feel like they're competing with the tier above some of those existing sort of German premium brands and Lexus and what have you. They are fantastic. So strongly suggest, if you're in the market for that kind of thing, go and check out Genesis. I've done a couple of reviews on Genesis cars lately on the channel, so go and check those out. Jeep to launch an electric Land Rover Defender rival by 2025. You see a little rendering of it there. Obviously, they've also got the Avenger coming up. They've got the new Cherokee coming up. So it's exciting times for Jeep. I think they're producing interesting vehicles again. They're using that brand to produce something that you might actually look at and think, whoa, I like that, which they haven't really done for quite a long time. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops as time moves on. Big thanks to viewer Lee Serafian for this one. Sorry if I've just absolutely destroyed your name. Ford seeks patent for cars that ditch you if payments are missed. So Ford have put in a patent application for this that basically installs technology within the car that means if you miss your payments, your monthly payment on the car. Don't forget, by the way, that Ford look like they're about to ditch franchise car dealerships, and lots of companies are now making these kind of noises where they might go to direct sales models, or something like Tesla, where you basically have regional showrooms come service centres, but you don't really have salespeople. You go online to place the order yourself. So what this would do is, say you've got the car from Ford, you're paying Ford every month for the car, and you suddenly stop making your payments because money's a bit tight or whatever else. Ford could disable your vehicle or disable functions within it. And then once you make the payment, it all works again. And obviously with self-driving technology, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that your car couldn't repossess itself. So imagine you go to bed one night, you're 2 months behind on your car payments, you wake up in the morning and your car's driven itself back to Ford. It's a brave new world, folks. Folks, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And thank you very much for all the people that buy me a coffee. I'm going to start doing, when I get things sent to me for review, but sometimes I have to send them back, but if it's something I get to keep, I'm going to start doing giveaways with them. And anyone that buys me a coffee will automatically get an entry into that. And any of my monthly coffee members will get double amounts of entries for every one of those, and that will happen automatically. If you want to buy me a coffee, there is a link in the video description. There's also my support page on my website, 𝑘𝙃𝑒𝑟.co.uk, and all my sponsors are on there, including the sponsor of today's video, Car2Cover. You can buy my book from that page. You can go onto Lease Loco, you can get your V-check. All these things help to support the channel. It really is appreciated when you guys give me that support. Also, just watching the videos. I've released quite a few lately that have done some fairly poor numbers, so please have a look through my recent videos. There might be something there that is of interest to you that you haven't yet checked out, so please go and do so. Thanks ever so much for watching. I'll see you on the next one.